Hi. Let's talk a moment or two. I've introduced this idea before, but I'll reintroduce it. Since 1840, there has been a new type of king in the world. Used to be that a king was someone who had enough charisma to rally enough warriors to his side to be able to dominate more than his own village. You've got the village is like, yeah, he's the guy who makes all the decisions and speaks for the village because the village decided he's good at it, or he wants it so bad we decided to let him do it. He's our mayor or whatever. Village chief, tribal chief. But when one of these chieftains rises up to the point that he owns a lot of other chieftains, he becomes a king. And when he takes over several kingdoms, he becomes an emperor. And of course, if you've got enough weapons and enough tough bully boys on your side, you can start telling other people what they can and cannot do. And so we came to the age of peasants and royalty, where if you didn't have enough tough bully boys on your side and enough resources on your side, you didn't stand a chance. You were just somebody's peasant. A peasant was a slave. I mean, serfs and peasants, you didn't have any rights. No, not right of free movement, not nothing. So, okay. People didn't like that very much, so they started making a lot of noise and fighting back. And eventually, they got to the point where King John signed the Magna Carta, agreeing that he was not above the law, and that the law was something that served humanity rather than his own personal desires. But by then, we had dynasties and dynastic royalty, and things were doubtless also happening elsewhere, because by then the entire globe had met each other. Trade with China was going on, and colonizing was happening. So the doctrine of Magna Carta also happened to spread, and we had the French Revolution, and so essentially by about 1840, the power of royalty was pretty much no more than that of any rich person. They still had their fabulous wealth. And with it, they invested in factories, and they invested in enterprise, and they invested in things, as well as of all the play and nonsense and luxury that rich people like to enjoy. And, wow, great, but not, because, well, it's unsustainable. Living well beyond your means, making other people do everything for you, overconsumption of goods and foods, is not sustainable in any system. It just isn't. So sooner or later, the rich guy starts to run out of riches unless he makes some more. And one of the biggest obstacles to making more money is having to pay people to do stuff for him. But he can't do it all himself. Nobody can. You can't get rich on your own. I'm sorry. You get rich either by exploiting others or by being given gifties by others. You get rich off others. So the rich people realized that paying the workers to work in the mills and factories and manufactories wasn't very profitable. And so they paid them as little as possible. They basically turned them into slaves by giving them housing and then charging more for the food, rent, clothing that you provided than they actually earned, and making rules where the pay they got was only useful in the company store. And so now, instead of the king owning your life, the corporation owns your life. They told you when to get up. They told you what, like you have to be here at 7 a.m., so of course you got to get up at 5 a.m. or whatever. And the rich guys once again started pushing everybody around to see what they could get away with and how far they could take it. Well, people don't like that, so they start arguing back. So we get to the early 1900s, and labor unions and organization. A new trick. We're going to organize. We're going to get together, and we're going to, if you don't pay us properly, we're all going to get together and agree and strike. We're going to stop working for you. And nobody who works in our field will work for you until you pay properly. And so labor unions were formed. And they brought great strides to worker equality, worker rights and equality. But even as the labor unions were doing their thing, the guys who own the corporations, the rich guys, the narcissists, the people who are responsible for the rape of our planet, they could see it coming. And they're like, we need a new trick. People are wise to our tricks. We need a new trick. Was it Edward Bernays, I believe, was one of the movers and shakers in the how to influence public opinion, is what they called it. Public opinion, public relations. And what it really is it's a type of group psychology, group human psychology, where you figure out how humans as a group function. And it turns out we are so diverse that you have multiple groups. This group functions this way, that group functions the other way. But you find out what appeals to them, what triggers them, and you use it to sway their opinion. And they didn't just print ads in the newspaper. They commissioned movies, selected scripts. They commissioned books, selected manuscripts. They they rewrote textbooks and the curriculum in schools. And through their great financial donations and paying lobbyists, they were able to make the curriculum for us so that they could tell us what we're going to learn and what we're not going to learn. And they adjusted the history and they adjusted the education. And the goal the goal is to make us too weak to fight back, too weak to say no, too weak to stand up for ourselves, basically. They had a really big boost in their technology in the 60s when the cult phenomenon started. The Krishnas, the Hare Krishnas, and the Moonies, and more infamous ones that turn around and actually killed their members. And cults, yeah. They realized that if you feed people high carb, low protein, and poor nutrition, they become more susceptible to brainwashing. And brainwashing is best done with a lot of short, sweet slogans. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. Not, we have the best burgers in town and we've served millions and millions of people and we're sure you'll love it. No. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. Short, sweet, straight to the emotions. And you'll notice that too. They don't, the latest car commercial that's driving me nuts. What makes us fall in love with a car before we even know anything about it? And at that point, they're like, before we know anything about torque and horsepower. And at that point, the skip ad button comes on, and I say nothing as I click the OK button and get rid of the ad. Nothing makes us fall in love with a car until we know something about it. But why on earth are we selecting a car on the basis of falling in love with it in the first place? Either all cars are equal, and it's completely irrelevant which brand we choose. Ooh, oh no. Or we're selecting because we can only afford a certain amount, and so it comes down to features per price. When's the last time you spent tens of thousands of dollars on a whim? I mean, really. Yeah, I know there's people out there that do, but there's only two kinds of people that do. Those that are deeply in debt and those that are raping us all. Yes, I guess I am a socialist. I'm an anarcho-socialist. That is, I believe in the principle of anarchy, wherein it's not my place to tell you what to do or anyone else. It's not anyone else's place to tell me what to do. You don't try to coerce, force others. Instead, you take personal responsibility because you have to live in this world and you create, through your actions, the world in which you wish to live, as best you can anyway. It doesn't tend to work real well. And the socialist part is, of course, that being mindful of others' needs over my own. Just because I'm in the mood to grind steel at 1 a.m. doesn't mean I do. Because I'm mindful of my neighbors. And in the larger picture, that also means that I don't go through 50 shirts in a week and throw them all in the trash because they're just slightly off. And then I go buy another shirt because, I'm bored and I need something to do. And then I throw that in the trash. And or recycle bin or whatever, and it winds up in Ghana, and people in Ghana are trying to figure out what to do with my crappy polyester shirt, and all of the things that come from fast fashion and, mindlessness. Socialism is more about mindfulness, and anarcho-socialism is about as mindful as you get. I also identify as a Buddhist. So, the thing I'm trying to tell you is that you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated by the media. You're being manipulated by the media. Okay. When movies are made, they cost millions of dollars. Who's got millions of dollars? The rich guys. Which movies are they going to want to make? The ones, you should check this out. The movies they're going to make are the ones that serve their interests. So they're going to choose movies where the hero is an anti-hero. They don't want heroes who are true heroes, because when you have true heroes, pardon the wrinkles, it's hard to live with being fat after not being fat most of my life. They want heroes that are anti-heroes, people that you can't trust. So a hero who's psychopathic and dangerous, or a hero who's clumsy and lucky, but not a hero who is intelligent, rational, calm, and capable of motivating others to assist and help out, which is the only kind of hero we really need. Somebody who can maintain a certain level of reason. We don't have those in the movies anymore. Movies open with such psychopathic levels of violence that, well, obviously people can watch them. Clearly, our society has become incredibly psychopathic. If they had opened a scene in a movie back in 1960 with a bunch of slaughtering and blood and gore, graphic blood, gore, and slaughter, what would have happened? Well, the entire audience would have fled the room, retching and crying and going like, why would they show us that? And now it's par for the course. I mean, I was flicking through Netflix trying to find a movie that didn't start off with people treating each other like crap in some fashion. And one after another, the first scene opens and boom, 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 and slash and hack. And I go to the next one. And, you did this and you did that. Well, I'm never... And people warring again. And I just, that's not normal. I'm sorry, it's normal now, but it's not supposed to be. It's not healthy. It's not healthy normal. We are being influenced by the corporations to become less generous, less compassionate, and to view people who would be of use to us as lesser persons. For instance, I found a movie that didn't involve people beating on each other, and instead a running thread hidden underneath the major plot line was that people who are interested in useful activities are boring. There was a character in there who was into stuff like spinning wool. She was into wool spinning. I can't spin anymore because the wool is in a bag which is under the camera because I'm stupid. She likes to spin wool, and she knows a lot of facts, and frankly, I thought she was the only interesting person in that movie. But the entire movie was painted to make her sound like the worst possible female that our hero, who should have been a perfect match for her, could possibly want. I mean, he was a librarian, he was into books, and I mean, like, they had so much in common, but no. He wants the crazy chick that screams her ass off all over the place and picks fights with people and doesn't appear to have any useful skills whatsoever. And that subtle dynamic is the point of the movie, where we're just watching a fun romance and rooting for our hero and being glad at the happy ending. We are being trained to think back in 1970, if you'd have had a party, it would have started around 6 or 7 p.m., maybe just after supper or included supper. It would have gone until about 11, maybe midnight. You would have spent the time listening to some music, possibly a performance by one of the partygoers, or else maybe somebody had a new record that they'd brought to put on your hi-fi. And that would be turned on, and possibly the records would run under the conversation. Probably not. You would have been drinking, yeah, or smoking weed or whatever, sure. Yeah, you definitely would have been smoking cigarettes. But you wouldn't have been sitting around talking. You'd have been sitting around a table playing cards, or you'd have been in the den throwing darts, or maybe someone had a billiards table, or maybe you played charades, or charades if you want to be toffy about it. You had party games. They were called party games. And when you had picnics, you had a party game going on. When's the last time you were at a party where there was a game? And if you were, thank you. Don't stop. Teach it to your kids. Invite more people, please. So many people, I mean, every party I've ever been to in my entire life, people stand around like bumps on a log, jawing with their lips flapping, consuming things, eating little canapes and drinking alcohol and blah, 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 all right, all night long. And all you have to do all night is blah, 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 blah. And everyone's going to judge you for the blah, blah, blah that comes out your mouth. So it had better be suave and sophisticated and mostly encourage them to do the blah, blah, blah while you say nothing. And what do you think happens in a room full of people who are trying to get everyone else to talk? I've been in those rooms too. When I finally break down and start talking. And of course, then I'm doing this because this is what I do at a party too. And you clicked on a video, so you're in the mood for some noise in your background. But tell me you want to see this at a party? Yeah. Oh, I got party clothes. Irrelevant. I don't go anymore. But this was the thing that was going on at parties, is people just stood around blabbering at each other. Like that was just pretty much it, Occasionally there'd be a couple making out in a corner somewhere. And it's just part and parcel of the dumbing down of humanity. Our education these days doesn't include a whole lot of critical reasoning skills. They don't teach kids anymore. Nobody teaches a kid anymore how to ask questions. In fact, when you go to study and to learn, I remember being in class and saying, yeah, but why is it like that? And the teacher's saying, that's not your problem to worry about. You just have to remember that it's like that. I'm like, but that's not learning. That's just memorization. And I'd be looked at as like, well, that's what learning is. Learning is memorization. And I'm like, well, and at this point, the conversation's over because they don't want to listen to me. But I'm sitting there and it's like, no, learning is understanding the idea, the concept, the totality of it in such that you can make up the rules all over again from your understandings of the subject matter. So, for instance, with welding, when you get to the point where welding's a lousy example. I don't even know it well enough. With spinning, I didn't do a whole lot of studying. I just did a whole lot of spinning. And occasionally, lessons will come my way, as lessons do, and I'll learn something from someone else instead of from my experience. But for the most part, my skill with spinning is coming directly from understanding how the hair fibers work, understanding how to twist rope, understanding how spinning, how fibers in a twisted situation work. Not from remembering the crimps per inch and remembering the rule of twists per inch and crimps per inch and count it. And I mean, I can learn all that stuff, but I'll get a better feel of it if I feel it. Or, for instance, understanding mass to weight ratios. Actually, physics and science are still really good at teaching you how to understand the underlying principles. And I suppose if you just consider it that way, I can shortcut this boring section of me trying to explain what learning is. So they don't teach that like they did anymore. In fact, I think in science they're even starting to cut back. And we're seeing a serious shortage of practical knowledge as a result of kids being forced to sit around and memorize data. You know, I'm not impressed when you can cite baseball facts or history stats at me. Or history facts and baseball stats. That doesn't impress me. But when you can look at a flat tire and a tire repair kit, and without anybody telling you what's what or how, work it out on your own and fix your tire, I'm impressed. That's intelligence. That's critical reasoning skills. But people these days frequently seem to turn instead to, oh no, who do I call and pay to solve my problem? What do I buy to fix this problem? You know, oh, this thing I have doesn't fit here. I'll go buy something else that does fit here and throw this thing out. Instead of, oh, maybe I can modify this thing and it will work for me. People used to modify and repair. Oh, look, the leg fell out the bottom of the chair. I guess it's garbage. Used to be, you screwed the chair leg back in. Now you get a new chair. And it's clear that people are hungering for that level of connection with their world and control and power. We want the power to repair. We want the power to make. We want the power to hold on to the things that we like. We're seeing a resurgence of the desire to do that, but corporations don't want that. They want us tied to purchasing things. Not, and that's the interesting thing, not because they're selling, but because we have to work. See, that the sales, I don't know if you've noticed, but things that are that dirt cheap just aren't that profitable. They're not making their big deal that way. I'm not exactly sure how in the heck it's working, but it's keeping us going into work that is keeping the rich men rich. I haven't worked out exactly how, but somehow keeping us in the Western world marching to someone else's beat is the most important part of the project. Think on that, would you? I think I've blathered and blabbered enough. And yeah, this is a YouTube channel. I'm just going to talk about my YouTube channel for 5 minutes. I quit doing a vlog because people in my meatbag life were using my digital videos to create problems for me in my meatbag life. I'm very open and honest, and these problems were extremely threatening. So I yanked the plug on the information highway. I says, okay, fine, no more. And it's helped a lot. It's cut down a lot, and no one was really watching them anyway. I also no longer have video editing software that I can use. I found a few that I can't use. They just don't work for me. I don't want something that's going to constantly have to cycle through its memory for every single gigabyte of video on the computer. And then I'm going to have to poke through all the thumbnails. I want something that I can bring in from a folder, the videos I want to use, only the stuff I want to use, not some stupid inbound library that's bound into the software. And I haven't found one yet. Wow, just did a trans flag. So I've completely stopped doing videos except for these rants, which are just unedited, raw, straight from the phone. So if you do watch these and you do like them, show me a sign. I really do feel like I'm shouting into the void. I don't know. I don't get likes. I don't get comments. So, hi. Thanks for watching. And I hope I taught you something.